It's your vote counts. I'm Scott Mitchell. This is Representative John Pfeiffer, Representative Cyndi Munson. Good to have you both in. And what caught my eye this week was former Secretary David Ostrowe's lawsuit. Now, this is not against the current Attorney General. This was against former Attorney General Mike Hunter. And the thing is just really, well, it's interesting. He's asking for a lot of money. How's this going to work?
I don't really see it working at all. Two things. I think it's petty, and I also think it's a waste of time. We're in the middle of getting out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We're all trying to move forward. We're trying to get folks back into the workforce and keep our schools going. And so, you know, as we move into the next legislative session, those will be our priorities. And we can't get or have Oklahomans in the midst of a petty fight and something that in reality isn't going to be paid for. And I think we just have to keep focused on what's coming up in this next legislative session and taking care of Oklahomans.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. But you bring up a great question. How's this going to be paid for? Who's going to pay for it? Where's the money coming from? Your thoughts about this lawsuit?
This lawsuit is superfluous and supercilious. And if that sounds stupid, it's because it is. This is what happens when you have petty differences getting inside common sense. You've got a former cabinet member mad at a former attorney general over former charges. These charges have been dismissed. They've been served with, the Attorney General's office has been served with notice of suit. They've got 90 days to decide whether or not they're actually going to file suit or not. Hopefully common sense and the better angels will come forward and we can move on with our lives.
Instead of super silly, let's just say super silly. You got that word. All right. Speaking of the Attorney General's office, I saw an interesting person, one of the most powerful men in this state, Senator Roger Thompson, who is over the appropriations person over in the state Senate, said, hey, this pushback from the state against Biden administration, which they call, you know, oversteps, mostly a lot of it's about mandates, vaccines for one, and saying basically Senator Thompson says if Attorney General O'Connor needs more money, we'll get him more money. Your thoughts?
Well, I think we've seen the success the Attorney General has had when we empowered him with House Bill 1236 to fight back against a federal government that's continually overreaching its bounds. It's sad, unfortunately, none of this would be necessary if we had a president who is willing to govern inside the bounds of the Constitution. But if that's not going to happen, the Biden administration is not going to change their tactics. We're going to have to empower the Attorney General to continue to fight against federal overreach and stand up for the freedoms we have here in the state of Oklahoma. And the legislature stands ready to provide him the funds to do that.
All right, and I suppose you'll have a different take on what this is. A lot of people think this is about primary Republican elections, or is it more?
Yeah. You know, just like I said in the last question, we are all trying to move forward from this pandemic. We know that we have a crisis when it comes to our workforce. And so right now, I think it's important when Oklahomans hear leaders, especially those at the highest level, talking about siphoning money off to fight with the federal government. You need to remember that that $10 million or more is being taken away from education, from health care, and the things that we can do to make sure that our economy works for all of us. And so I would be mindful and listen to our leaders and what they're saying when it comes to this next legislative session. Not worth our time, Scott.
By the way, the Attorney General has a primary. Does the name Gentner Drummond ring a bell? All right, coming up, that ARPA money's starting to flow. We'll tell you how when we come back. Back for part two. You've heard about ARPA money, which I'm going to let you explain what ARPA means. But the first money coming out of ARPA, the recovery plan money, is out. There's some broadband, there's some mental assistance for mental health and youth. But the money's now started a hunting G, and I don't know how much it is, but it's flowing now.
It is. The committee, and I forget the official name of it, but it's basically the committee between House and Senate members who decide where the ARPA money is going to get spent, have met this previous week, and they decided to recommend appropriation of $2 million to start on broadband mapping. So as we go forward with broadband infrastructure, we know which areas of the state we need to concentrate on, and also $7.5 million going to the Oklahoma Children's Hospital to focus on mental health in pediatric patients.
Yeah, Speaker McCall made an issue about broadband. Logan Phillips, we're looking at you. But you see that we should just call this committee the money that Uncle Sugar sent us to spend. But the fact is, it started, and it could really do some good.
Yeah. I am a member of the Joint Committee on Pandemic Relief Funding, or what we call is just the ARPA committee. And so we've been busy, working in our working groups, really trying to assess what's happened here in Oklahoma since the pandemic and where we can invest these dollars. As we've mentioned before, $1.8 billion is coming to the state of Oklahoma for us to appropriate to projects that are vital to Oklahoma's economy. And this past week, we did vote on recommending the broadband mapping and then the emergency department for pediatric mental health. And so keep an eye out on us and know that we'll be working pretty hard even throughout session.
Uncle Sugar is a term David Dank taught me. Did you know him?
I did.
I think you might have known him. Okay. So now, the fact is, the money's falling out of the sky. It's everywhere. You can't go anywhere without stepping in money from the pandemic that's flowing down to the states. So I'm seeing a lot of stories right now where the states are going, makes a really good campaign year, do tax cuts. Is there going to be a tax cut in Oklahoma, do you think? And if so, is it wise to do this with one-time money?
I'll start by saying this. It's absolutely important to remember that the money that's coming into the state of Oklahoma is one time. These are not recurring revenues. Therefore, it's not the time to cut taxes. Both Representative Pfeiffer and I have lived through legislative sessions where we have had to cut services and where we didn't have enough money to appropriate to our agencies. We cannot and should not be looking at cutting taxes. None of us want to live through that again. This money is here to help us overcome this COVID-19 pandemic, and that's where our focus should be, not cutting taxes.
What do you think?
Well, Oklahoma's revenues collections are up, and it's not because of an influx of federal money. Oklahoma's revenue collections are up because Oklahoma's economy is booming. And our economy is booming because of the choices and policies we've made in the last 15 years. I think it's important to think about, even though our economy is booming, we find ourselves in this inflationary trend, and it's not going to be temporary. And we need to be looking at places or we can do to help our constituents and help the people of the state of Oklahoma fight back and cope with inflation. And if that means looking at ways that they could keep more of their money in their pockets, we need to be encouraging to do that.
Sounds just like John Eccles. Inflation. It's not a good week for that. See this again at news9.com/HeroWhatCounts. Follow me on Twitter @MitchellTalks. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.